Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to continue my series on the road to a 700-pound squat, kind of sharing with you all my experiences and what I learned en route to that milestone. If you haven't, go ahead and go back and check out my other Road to episodes on the squat, bench, and deadlift. I have those coming out on a pretty regular basis, and this 700-pound squat is probably going to be the second to last one, where I'll do 700-pound squat and then I'll probably do a 750, and hopefully we get to an 800 here soon enough. But let's get into it. As far as what I had learned up to this point in my training with, 500-pound squat, most of that was learning passion for lifting itself and learning to stick to some sort of program, even though those programs probably weren't like the most intelligently laid out. I was just pushing myself very hard. I had a very good group around me to push myself, and I hit that 500-pound marker. Then to 600 pounds, I essentially learned how to eat. And going off to Frostburg State, I had a meal plan. I was learning how food can fuel my training and gains. And once again, I had a very nice group of serious lifters around me to push me to get better. And then once I hit that 600-pound mark, I kind of flew past into that 650-ish pound range pretty quickly. So I went from 500-pound squat to a 650-pound squat in what I would call a relatively short amount of time, a year and a half or so, somewhere in there. Now, at this point, this is where things really slowed down. And I would say the biggest takeaway that I had, there were two things. One was I had to learn to be patient. Early on in training, especially if you have decent training genetics where you're going to get stronger on a regular clip with serious strength training, you're going to get fast gains right off the bat as your beginner gains, much like I did. I was shooting up monthly, it seemed like, hitting PRs for that first few years that I really became serious about training. And then you start to move into intermediate level progression. And if you can picture it, it's a lot like a logarithmic curve. It shoots up fast at the start and then it tapers off and very slowly grinds upward over time. That's kind of how a training career is. And for me, it was between that 600 and 700 pound range where my slope of progression really started to round off. So for a lot of people, or at least in my experience, they tend to drop off, if they're going to, during that moderation of the slope, because it becomes way less fun because you're not hitting PRs all the time. It's much more of a grind, so to speak. Now, for me, I kind of embraced that idea and it was okay. I accepted it was going to become a thing. At that point, I had done enough research to realize that, hey, it's probably going to, become like this eventually. The party can't go on forever. So I learned to be patient with my training. At the same time, I got a coach in Bill McCarthy, who is my current coach. So whenever I started working with him, my best squat was 672 pounds. So I was right in the gist of that moderation. And he put me on a program that was very regimented. And for the first time ever, we really started to work on weak points through secondary and assistance work. So up until this point for me personally, I didn't do a ton of pause squats or pin squats or tempo squats, front squats, things like that. And all of those things, Bill had me start to do in my program to build up the spots where I was deficient to hunt those higher numbers. And an example is I would struggle with keeping tightness in the bottom of the squat. So we did tons of pin squats and tons of tempo squats to really learn that positioning. So overall, it was patience that I had to learn, coupled with good coaching and focus on specific weak points that eventually broke me through that 700-pound barrier. And it ended up taking, if I think about it here, my first 600-pound squat was fall of 2014, and my first 700-pound squat was March of 2017. So we're looking at a solid 2 years and a couple months that I just kind of ground through into that 700-pound barrier. And if you go back and you look at my 600-pound squat, and especially my 500-pound squat, and compare it to this 700-pound squat that we're about to see from the Arnold, my technique had changed a whole lot. I was a lot more proficient. My walkout was better. I had switched to heeled shoes, which I still use now. And that's something you'll notice, even back in 17, my form was relatively similar to what it is today. There's been some tweaks here and there, and watching these sets, you can, check out how I squat today and then compare it to back then. Very similar. So overall, those are the things that led me to that next barrier. And really, that's going to be the name of the game from now on. It's that patience. The biggest thing is patience. So here we are. Let's go ahead and take a look at this squat. Should be coming up. There we go. So at this point, I was 20 years old. My first 700-pound squat. Been hunting this number for a while. This was at the Arnold of 2017. And this was my second of, 4 Arnolds. Yeah, 4 Arnolds that I was able to compete in. And as you can see, it was done with authority too. So I was definitely very happy with that squat. Not a whole lot to complain about, unlike past videos where it was very cringeworthy. I'm pretty proud of this squat. You'll notice my stance is a little bit wider here. And it's come back in since then for various reasons. All right, so that about does it. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate your time. Hopefully this helped, and keep an eye out as we kind of wrap up this series. Please like and subscribe as always, and until next time, happy lifting.